Okay, we should be recording. Are you there, Jason?
I'm here. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing good, man. Everybody out there in blue collar logic land, this is our first blue collar podcast.
Yeah,
And
we'll see how this goes.
it's actually been a pretty long time. It's been a pretty long time since we saw each other in person. Do you remember when the last time was?
Boy, I don't know. Yeah,
I think it was. I think it might have been at that thing where we went and saw Gorka and Prager over in Glendale. I think that was the last time maybe that we got together face to face.
Was that like 6 months ago?
Something like that. Yeah, I think that
5 months ago, something. It's been a while. Like one of my friends from home who watches the channel, she was like, so like you and Dave are like best friends, you guys hang out a lot. And I was like, nah, I really don't see Dave all that much.
Yeah, we're like one of those English rock bands that turns out they hate each other. We're like the Kinks or something like that. We never socialize ever.
Right. We don't actually hang out, but we do this channel together pretty good.
Well, the truth of it is, if there's anybody listening at all, the truth of the matter is that that the reason we started doing this is we kind of got to know each other on social media, and then I think Jason was kind of casing me a little bit, so he invited me to come up there and paint his bedroom and bathroom. And at that time, Jason was working full time out of the house as a sort of freelance audio and video engineer.
Yeah.
And it was hard to get my work done because we kept stopping and talking to each other. And we kind of got this feeling that it might be a thing.
Well, I showed you this music video. I remember I showed you this music video that I had shot.
I remember that.
Like, where did you do that? And I was like, oh yeah, and I got a green screen in the garage. You're like, oh really? And then it was like,
did you have the green screen then?
I
didn't realize you had the green screen.
And you were like, I could. He's like, I could shoot like a PragerU video or something, right? And I was like, sure, we could do that. And I was like, well, let's do that.
He's younger and has better memory than I do. But all those videos that we did where I'm in front of the white screen, before I decided to drastically lower my production values, are there. Like, Jason is more or less facing into that area. You don't see it. It's not on camera right now, but that's where we made all those videos. And one of the problems we had was that we would get together and we'd talk for an hour. And on occasion we thought, if we'd just recorded that would have been a pretty good video. So now that we're thinking about being interesting, it might be a little bit more difficult. So didn't you have a couple of topics you thought we should talk about, Jason, tonight?
Well, Bernie Sanders just suspended his campaign. I thought that was kind of interesting.
What? You knocked me over with a feather.
I know, right? Big shock there. But Bernie's sitting at home right now going like, they're going to vote for this guy. They're going to vote for that guy that can't even speak anymore. At least I can speak. I may just have a heart attack, but at least I can talk.
But he endorsed him immediately, didn't he?
Oh yeah, of course.
Did you see that? Did you see that tweet that somebody? One of us should be on Twitter, but it'll take up so much time. We just are afraid to go in there. But somebody, I guess it was one of his communication director or something like that, said, "Oh, well, sorry to see this end, but at least now I can take democratic out of socialism." It's like he said, when I refer to socialism, I don't have to keep saying democratic.
Right. I can stop lying about what I really want to happen. Right.
Exactly.
And then immediately Joe Biden goes straight for the let's get together and do this progressive thing. Right. Like he immediately tries to jump to the left to get as many Bernie guys as he can get.
Like he's so progressive. I mean, this is the way that they've always done it, is they try to identify where the audience is and go for that while they're running. And I suppose you and I would do a certain version of that as well.
Well, he'll magically make his way back toward the middle as it gets close to November.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to be. I wouldn't want to be running a campaign for either side right now, but particularly theirs, because I mean, love him or hate him, Donald Trump is on TV every damn day dealing with this outsized crisis of ours. And Bernie is nowhere to be seen, and Joe Biden is nowhere to be seen. It was like, oh, Bernie's out of the race. Yeah, that could have happened 2 weeks ago, and probably I wouldn't have noticed.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I thought it was funny is everybody was complaining there for a while that there were no White House briefings, right? They were all complaining like, "Oh, this has only been like the fourth briefing this month." And then now it's like, "You know what? Every day that's too much. We're going to quit covering. This is like giving him some popularity or whatever." So,
No.
you
It's
know,
just, it's,
you can't win.
I wish I had a little more patience left with these people, because they just flip flop. And the thing is, they don't just kind of halfway flip flop. Like, I change my mind on occasion when I find out when I've been advocating for one thing, and I figure out, I really wasn't maybe thinking that all the way through. And now I'm hearing a bunch of comments and things coming in at me. So I kind of like sort of back slowly from the room, but I'm not going to like immediately come onto the other side as
Right.
aggressively when I just put something out as a public statement on the one side. I'm going to say, well, okay, I better just shut up about this one for a while.
Right.
But Democrats have no impulse toward that.
Well, it's the same thing with the ban, right? The travel ban from China. It was originally it was, he hates immigrants, Donald Trump hates immigrants and so on. And then Biden came out like a couple weeks ago and said, "You know what? That travel ban wasn't soon enough." And it's like, "What? Are you
I
kidding
know
me?"
there was a big thing in the New York Times, the lost month. Well, wait a minute. The month after the travel ban was the guy. You guys were still trying to impeach him.
Right.
That's what was happening during that. Was they were still it, right in the middle of trying to impeach the president at the time when they thought that the president should be suddenly reading the tea leaves. And
Right.
in spite of all the misinformation coming out of China, he should have intuited it somehow and done all the things that they now see as Monday morning quarterbacks. Uh,
Right.
and
Even though they're all on video saying, "Oh, Nancy Pelosi, come to Chinatown," and the health officials in New York, "Oh, we should all be getting together. Let's go to the movies this weekend," and so on. And then now it was Donald Trump who didn't take it seriously.
take a Chinaman to the movies, I believe was her slogan.
I saw a video in Italy where they were hugging a Chinese person. The Chinese person was blindfolded, and to show that they weren't racist
Right, right.
during this, they were walking up and giving this guy a hug.
Yeah,
And
I, I,
did
I
that
heard
have
it
something
was
to
even.
do with it?
Yeah, I even heard it was something like one of the political leaders had said, hug a Chinese tourist or something to make sure that they know that we're not xenophobic, and maybe somebody made that up. I never actually saw the
I saw the video.
uh,
I don't Yeah,
of just a
I saw
random person hugging, or was it part
like
of a
he's blindfolded, has the mask over his mouth, and people are and some kind of sign or something, and he's just standing there, and people are coming up to him and hugging him, and some people are like pulling off his mask and pulling off his blindfold.
tongue kissing
Trying,
him?
right, I know, right? Trying to show that they're not racist, and who knows? Maybe that was the straw that really broke the camel's back in Italy.
Well, it really is the same. Even if that particular thing hadn't happened, they were very, very reluctant to. Didn't take us long to get back on COVID, did it? We were talking about Bernie, and now here we are again. It's just
You can't get
it's
away from COVID right now.
it's the topic that will not die. Oh my God! But there's a lot of people are thinking about it in terms of, if they had not been so careful not to seem xenophobic,
Hmm.
that they would have clamped down and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, hey, no offense, guys, but we got to stop this until we know what's going on." Wait, why can't politicians just talk like that? Why can't they just go, "Look, hey, nothing against you guys. I love the working relationship we have, but it seems like something's going on in your country. We want to make sure that we don't bring this bug in here." You know? Oh my God, that's xenophobic. I mean, the the weird twisting of language has become so habitual on the
Well,
left that
there's nothing xenophobic about it, right?
nothing at all.
Like there is something happening. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin, how tall they are, none of that stuff. It's
Not a
just
bit.
about what was going on, and yeah, it's sad, but part of me wonders how many on the left really believe in that? Oh, that's xenophobic or whatever, and how many are playing that game just to seem that, you know, to show that they care or that they're that person, you know, that isn't racist or whatever.
Well, just a long time ago, they decided that that was their strategy. And going way, way back, you know, as a guy who was, you know, pretty firmly on the left for a long time, as far back as Nixon, there's just been this, we have to demonize the other side, because
Mhm.
the truth is that everybody's parents raised them with basic conservative values. And
Mhm.
all the people that I know that are raising kids who vote Democrat, they're raising them with basic conservative values. You
Right.
know, teaching them to take responsibility, teaching them to have accountability, and that something is better earned than to have it given to you. And they're trying to raise character in their own children. But somehow they got so into this calling everybody else a racist, and then that spread to, well, we can't criticize those people lest we leave ourselves open to being called racist. So now we have to not discipline those people. Now we have to allow those people to get away with murder. Now we have to call rap music.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Right. Right. Now we have to say, "We can't stop Chinese people from coming to our country and bringing a deadly disease because that would
Right.
be racist."
Yeah. Now, if you just would say we can't stop any people from coming to, but you're not allowed to say just things like that. You're not allowed to say all lives matter in that, in the situation referred to earlier. So you
Right.
can't just you could. Why can't you just say, look, any country anywhere in the world, regardless of color, if there is next year a Nordic virus, we're going to cut travel from Norway.
Right.
You know, it, it's just when you cripple your own ability to think things through because you're not allowed to go near that third rail. They've got this giant third rail, a number of them running through
Mhm.
all of their discussions. These things where you cannot touch this thing, or else everybody else in the cocktail party looks at you like, oh fuck, there's a conservative here in the room.
Right.
You know?
But even as a lefty, when they accidentally slip up and crack that joke or they say that thing, like what was it, Obama was on some talk show once
Yeah,
and maybe as Leno, and they were asking him about bowling, and he's like, "Oh, I bowl like a Special Olympian." You know, and that was his
he got
little
away with it.
joke. And then everybody, you know, later on, they're like, "Oh, you probably shouldn't have said that." He's like, "You know, I apologize for saying that." And then that was it.
Right,
But
right.
had Donald Trump said that, it would be just news, you know, cycle long, long, long after that. And he'd been told he hates people with disability and so on.
It would have literally been the centerpiece of any number of Democratic hopefuls for offices, large and small, all over the
Right.
country. They would have run on that one quote from Donald Trump.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. These people are just, and they're getting really weird about this particular thing that we're looking at, because that you're not allowed to in any way challenge this thing. You're not allowed to in any way say, okay, look, it's time to get back to work. What are
Mhm.
you talking about? Don't you know that John Prine just died? You know, it's like
Right.
somebody we love died from this. We have to shut down the economy in case somebody else we love might somehow get it. And that is so antithetical to everything that we know about fighting for a way of life.
Well, what do you think about, do you think there's gonna be some kind of precedent set that
You
that
know what?
the
I
next
didn't
bad
st-
season?
did I start the recording? I did.
I think
I'm
you
very
did.
paranoid about starting the recording.
You said you did.
I think I
Um,
did.
so I wonder if this is gonna set some kind of precedent where the next really bad flu season, they say, "Hey, you know what? February, we should everybody should stay home for 2 weeks in February. Sorry, businesses again. You have to eat the cost on this. Banks, take a 2-week holiday," and so on. Is this gonna be some kind of normal thing now where or next COVID season, if you will?
What do you think?
Well, that worries me, right? Because if we end up, you know, it not being as bad as they predicted it was gonna be, they're gonna tell us, "See what we did? We stopped this."
Yeah,
Right? So that
yeah,
means the very next time they get a chance to stop something,
right.
they're gonna stop it, but it's always the left always works in, you know, a crisis should never go to waste kind of
Right.
mode, right? So they're looking for the next moment they can do this, is what
And
I
this
think.
and this one truly is diabolical because, like Garcetti is just he's actually ramping up the clamping down,
Oh yeah.
and that's rather flowed off the tongue, didn't it? Um, and when the curve is so flat in California that it's ridiculous. I mean, our hot spot here in California, I think, is Santa Clara. You know,
Mhm.
it's not in the
Right.
it's Silicon Valley, really, because that's where the Chinese come in and out. But there's this weird notion that because the left, it looks at New York like Mecca, and they think that that New York always gets there first, and so that somehow, even if something happened bad, oh, it's going to come here because everything emanates from New York.
Right.
Whereas we have 1 million uh, passengers approximately every year doing travel back and forth from China coming into Los Angeles International, LAX. And we got it at the same time they did. It's not like Chinese people go, well, I want to go visit LA. I guess I got to fly to New York first and wait 4 weeks, and then I'll
Right.
fly to LA. What makes them think a virus works that way?
But
Eh,
I don't know. What bothers me is that it's obvious why a big city like New York, where everybody's crammed on top of each other,
mhm.
has a different situation. I talked about it in my last video off of
Absolutely.
your video that you talked about it. I
Yeah.
mean, that you look
It's
at their
it's
just their
obvious.
subway, the way they travel, all that stuff. There's so many reasons, and
Right.
then we can't even. We're supposed to. Garcetti is acting like we're just 2 weeks behind them. In 2 weeks, we're going to be in that same position they are now, and that's not going to be the case.
But he keeps pressing that issue. He's
Right.
only now just begun to back off a little bit because Gavin Newsom, for those of you who don't know out in the TV audience, uh, Gavin Newsom, the day before yesterday or the day before that, gave 500 ventilators back to the National Reserve. So he had all these ventilators that were given to them from the National Reserve 2 or 3 weeks ago, when everyone was saying, "Give us ventilators, give us ventilators," and he gave 500 back. Now, if they're looking for a big spike, what man in his right mind? And Gavin Newsom is a political animal too. He wants to get reelected. He wants to someday be president, like they all do. Uh,
Right.
you think he's going to give those 500 ventilators back when New York has clearly said that they have all that they need? Where would he send them? You know, Fargo, North Dakota. He's saying we have enough. That's what he's
Right.
saying. And he can't be saying that unless there is no spike expected by
Right.
him.
No, that's exactly
And
right.
I give
And
him credit for it because that was his way of basically undermining the argument of Garcetti. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, speaking of people who want to be president, Garcetti thinks he's going to be president one day as well,
he,
right? I
he
mean,
does.
he sent early on. He sent his crew to wherever Missouri or wherever it is to see. Do people know who Eric Garcetti is yet?
Did he
Um,
do that?
Yeah, he did. He had a little
Well,
committee, or what's it called? I can't even think of the thing. They send out a little committee to go around and talk to people, see if people are know
kind of like a
him,
focus
or
group.
yeah, some kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're in a place where the mayor is actually wanting people to rat on other people,
He
right?
says
Like,
that. Yeah.
oh, this guy's, oh, they're open. Let's go tell on them. And if you're one of those people who see a small business over here trying to survive, and you go like, I'm going to go tell on you guys, man, that's not the America I want to live
I
in.
I just posted a thing a little while ago on Facebook, and basically it was saying that the real China virus is this germ that gets into the brain and makes people beg to be subjugated. I
Hmm.
mean, they are screaming at me because I'm saying, "Hold on a minute. I'm wearing a mask. I've made 7 videos saying I'm following all the guidelines. Um, let's look at ways we can get the economy going so that we don't have stack economic disaster on top of medical disaster. How does that make sense?" And oh my God, the blowback I get, because I'm not allowed from these people to have any sort of doubt at all. And that type of groupthink is what they really want. And that's why they're drawn toward collectivism. So in a way, they kind of admire China. Uh,
Yeah.
but this is, to me, the bug that's come from China is this collectivist thinking. That's it. If they've turned them into the kind of people that the Chinese are. They're not allowed in any way to ever criticize the government, and these people want a world like that where they can
Right.
install a leader and just follow. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, there's something about there. I'll have to admit, there is something about being told, like, oh, you need to do this first, you need to do this second, and then you get it done, and you go, okay, I'm done with what I had to do.
sure,
And a lot of jobs are like that, right? These are the steps you have to do, and so on. And
right,
it's easy. You don't have to think. Like with this YouTube channel, like the creative part of it, like the finding what we want to talk about and all that stuff. Like it's a never ending thinking, struggling, writing, rewriting, throwing that away, trying something else. But
right,
there's something nice about someone going like, "Hey, man, show up here, do this for so many hours, go home, do all the things you want to do, enjoy your life, come back tomorrow, we can do it again, and everything's fine. Everybody will get what they need. Everything." I understand
right.
the attraction to that, but
I do
boy,
too.
that's not freedom. That's not what I imagine uh is the best for the human soul.
Well, particularly when we're looking at something that is very potentially damaging to everybody's way of life, where you're going to
Mhm.
say, okay, we're going to make these steps, and yes, I understand that we are going to unemploy millions of people who are now employed, and those people all have now they've got a place now, they've got rent, maybe they've bought a house, all this, that people that have come into the economy in the last few years, now they're out of the economy. Maybe how many businesses will close down? Tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 small businesses will
At
fold.
I
And
think at
to
least.
to not put any to say, I'm not even going to consider that. Oh yes, that's sad, but somebody told us, an 80-year-old virologist said that you have to wash your hands a lot and don't get close to anybody, and then a bunch of Democratic governors took that to mean knock down the whole, close down everything so that people are not allowed to be within 6 feet of each other. If
Mhm.
they'd have just simply gone on the news and because Anthony Fauci didn't call for that. Uh, he didn't call for that to shut the society down. He called for social distancing. Then they could have gone on and have the task force have a round table and say, okay, how do we do this social distancing while keeping the businesses open? Does that mean we have to go into split shifts where they work through the night, so some people come in, so that way you lower the number of people that are in the building at once? Do you put a jug of hand sanitizer on everybody's desk? Does everybody wear a mask? Should we be
Right.
making homemade masks until we get the supply up to the point? None of that was ever said. It was just somebody had the idea, and it was because they're so focused on Europe. They just love Europe.
Mhm.
Italy shut down the country. Well, Italy shut down the country when they were in the middle of a countrywide crisis, and
Right.
and it cost them their economy, right? And so, okay, we're just going to do what Italy did, and boom, and it just swept through the country until no, very few governors, even Republican governors, could stand up to the pressure.
Well, the part that bothers me, I guess, the most is someone like Eric Garcetti or Cuomo or whoever, they actually made the decision without pulling those small business owners in who work in the restaurant industry or work in this industry or whatever, and said, hey, look, here's the problem, what can you guys do about it? Now later on, Garcetti here in LA actually did do that. He closed down all the
Right,
farmers markets. I don't know if you heard about that. And then he decided to have a meeting with them, and they gave him a plan at how they're gonna minimize everything and mitigate the transmission of this disease. And he's like, okay, well, if you guys do all of that, then yes, you can stay open. And then why couldn't he have done that with everything? But you know,
Right.
you got to look at it this way too. Cuomo said if he just saves one life, it's all worth it. And it's like, what? What do you mean? It's
What
all worth
does
it. What kind of
what
comment
does
is
that
that?
what does that mean? You know, this is the sort of stuff that passes for thinking within an ideology where people are not allowed to reach a conclusion other than the one that the hive mind has ordered.
Mhm.
So after a while, you're it's like if you were never able to get up, Jason, and you know, you even though your legs were fine, you were asked to stay in a wheelchair for fear that if you stood up, you would be called an ableist. You would be putting oh, look at you walking in front of all these other people that can't walk. How dare you? So you ended up just okay, I'll sit in the wheelchair. Well, after a while
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to get up because your leg muscles wouldn't work anymore. If you're not allowed to say certain things because they might offend people, you after a while you can't even think of new things to say. Your
Right.
brain just gets slack because it's been trained that there's too much danger. Once you start thinking there's something not right about this, and you and I do this as a matter of course, we see a little thread that's wrong, and we start
Mhm.
following that thread and going, "Okay, what is it?" And after a while, we start connecting dots and going, "Oh man, there's something else going on here." And I think it's to our credit that we tend not to go overboard and become conspiratorial right away. You know,
Yeah.
I think we both fight against that because no, that is another type of easy thinking. You
Oh,
know,
it's definitely easy. I mean, and the conspiracy people are so good at making evidence and look at this
Th-
picture and this
they
guy's
do,
here and look what he's doing
they do. They're very
and
good
so
at it.
it's easy to get drawn into all that, the Illuminati or you name it. They'll bring you right in if you're willing to just listen
Right.
and and go with it.
And I have had a number of people write to me privately in the last week saying, "So, what is it? I mean, who is running this thing?" And I have to say, look, it, this is like looking at a flock of birds or a school of fish and saying, which is the bird or the fish that's guiding them? There is none. You can study that
Right.
forever. They react to each other in such a way
Right.
that once the panic starts going, you know, hence the title of that video, California, you know, once the cattle start charging, they all just have to go, you
Right.
know, even though nobody knows where they're going. It's like, well, they're all running over there. I better go too. And that does terrible damage if you don't welcome the skeptics among you. I mean, if every time we're skeptical, anti-science, or denier, or
Right.
whatever else it is, you know,
Right.
they just really like that comfort that you're talking about of knowing what's expected of you. I mean, when I was painting houses, my favorite time was when I had like 3 or 4 rooms and all I had to do was roll out walls, and I would go in there and I just roll all day long, you know, and my mind was free to roam. I could make up thoughts. I could listen to the radio. I could sing, whatever I wanted to do. Just roll all day, just
Right.
mind numbing work. And I was very happy during those times. but but you can't live your life that way. You can't say, "Okay, I'm just gonna always take the easy way out." It
Well, you
is
can
my
live your life that way, but society can't continue that way because
right, because it's
because
based on
because it just will just slowly go down that hill. But let me ask you
that's right.
something. You're See, I'm working still, right? So I'm full time out there every
Right.
day, getting up, and you're at home. Now, how's that
Slowly
going for you?
losing my mind.
Yeah, like how's that going for you?
It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird. Um, but as you know, I live a solitary life for the most part anyway. Even when I was working full time, I worked alone. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
you go out a lot or you like to go play music,
I
you
do, and
like to
that's
hang
painful.
out at night, and you haven't been doing that.
I know, and that's really painful because that's what keeps my humanity plugged
Mhm.
in, and I worry about my own ability to keep a perspective. You know, sometimes I start getting ready to write something, and I'm thinking, I don't know, man. I need to think about this. I need to talk to somebody about this, and I don't have anybody talk to or think it over with. So, but now we have
Right.
Zoom.
Yeah, I know, that's the whole world. When I went to buy this, camera, everything was out of stock, and I was all like, "Huh." My first initial thought was like, "Maybe they're all made in China and we're not getting them because of the," and I was like, "No, it's because no one's going to work, everybody's
It's
working from home." Okay,
everybody's
now I
doing it.
got it.
Everybody's doing it. But I think the more interesting question than how I'm coping is what you're seeing out there in the world when you're out there every day.
Well, I mean, it's taken me, like, a normal time to get home. So, like, if I'm 20 miles from home and I gotta drive home after work, I'm getting home in around 25 minutes, which is strange, but really nice. Like, that part of it, my job has actually gotten a little bit easier. Now, I don't wanna say who I work for, that kinda
Right.
stuff, because people on the left are crazy, and, I'm gonna say the wrong thing one day for them, and they're gonna boycott, my
You're going to get
business
canceled.
or whatever, right? So,
Right.
I can't say it, but for the most part, people seem pretty well, like, in good spirits. Almost everywhere I go, people say, "Hey, stay safe out there. Stay safe out there." I'm getting a
Right.
lot of thank you for working, thank you for staying out there.
Thank you for your
Um,
service.
yeah,
Right.
but I also feel like I am getting, 2 things. I feel a little bit OCD right now
Hmm.
because I sometimes have to deal with people, and I'm there going like, "Okay, I just saw you touch that, now I have to do, okay, don't touch," I'm doing that thing,
Right.
and then I'm also a bit of a hypochondriac now. Like, one day I was drinking some water or soda or whatever, and I kinda took some in the lungs and was, like, coughing, and I was like, "Oh, no." I was like, "Maybe this is the COVID. Oh, no." And then, like, the whole day I felt like a little bit weirdish because had to cough so hard where I'd done that. Everybody's done that, right?
Of
But then
course.
I just thought,
Right.
well, maybe it's I think that's what it is, but it actually is the COVID, and now I'm giving it to everybody, and no, so it's weird. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, and I got OCD now.
Well, when I reach in my pocket and hand somebody cash, I feel like, oh my God, I'm like Typhoid Mary here, handing on
Right,
the pathogen. And I it's like, wow, but it'd be even worse with my card, because the stuff, lives on smooth surfaces
right.
more.
Well, I
Uh,
asked the lady the other day. I was at the store, and I started to pay with cash, and I said, Is cash okay, or do you want us to use our card?" Thinking, they don't want the germs. But she's like, "Yeah, cash." She looked at me like I was crazy, like, "Yeah, cash is king, man. What are you talking about?"
yeah, they're cool with it. Well, to me, the thing that if it goes like I think it's going to go, which is that we don't have a big spike here in California, and of course I could be wrong about that. I don't know what the mechanism would be to move it from virtually no disease to all of a sudden a gigantic uh, a bunch of disease. But if it goes as I think it is, and basically this thing dies down and it does respond to the end of flu season, like I've been saying it will, because Anthony Fauci has himself let that slip a number of times in sort of subtext. Um, if all of that goes by, one of the things they're going to have a hell of a time taking, that's going to keep them from being able to easily take credit for it by saying, well, it was us that shut everything down. We saved the day. Is
Mm,
there's going to be a number of people who are going to say, well, why was there never an outbreak surrounding any of the Walmarts? Why was there never an outbreak surrounding any of the places that were allowed to stay open? The places that were allowed to stay open are full of healthy people.
right.
And I've seen it for myself because I'm going into these places and I'm looking at the people and I'm saying, have you had anybody here that's gone out sick? And they say, nope, nobody at all. And it's been weeks of this. And now they're wearing masks, but they
I saw
weren't
the I saw
for a
the
long
lady
time.
I went to the grocery store today, and the lady checking me out, she's I think she's the manager. She's there every time I'm there, so
Right.
she's getting crazy hours right now. And, I paid with my card, but she did all the checking out. She has no mask on, no gloves. She did all the checking out, everything, and then she goes
Right.
like, and then
Exactly.
just keeps going.
That's what I've
And
been seeing.
but my first thought was like, lady, you just touched your nose. You're
Right.
not allowed to do that. What do you?" But she's probably been doing this now for weeks, just being normal, just doing her thing, and she hasn't gotten it. Yeah, it's
And being exposed to literally hundreds of people every day, if not thousands, you know?
right.
And And so how are they going to explain that there was this pathogen that was trying to get out, and it was everywhere, and it was walking the streets, and it was oh, where are the people? Oh, they're locked in their houses. Oh, I'm dying a pathogen death out here. If there was so much of this stuff here, why are the people who have not been locked in their houses, all of
Mhm.
the people like you who have the what do they call it, essential jobs?
Yeah, I have an essential job. I'm
Why are
important.
they not getting sick? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I deal with the public. I have to go in sometimes I have to go in people's houses.
Right,
I, um, I go in people's businesses, um, and there's no one that I know of where I'm working that has it yet,
right.
and we should have it by now. Like, it's been
If it
long
was
enough.
really out there that in these kind of numbers,
Right,
you would, right. And the
right.
thing is, but especially the supermarket checkers, because you know how a supermarket is, you can't move you can't suddenly turn the check stand where all the groceries go by, and you got the conveyor belt goes by. That's about 2.5, that's about 18 inches wide at the most, right?
Mhm.
And then the person is right beyond that. Now you're back a little bit, but you can't back up to the place where you're 6 feet away from them. So they're having all these people, and they've got the customers spaced out now with blue tape on the ground, so that you know you've seen that, where the
Right,
people are, so that keeps them 6 feet away, and that's great. You know, so it goes all the way down through the sort of like dog toys and around the corner over by the eggs, and that's where the line starts. And all
right,
those people are staying out away from them, right? But none of those people are staying away from the grocery checker, who still mostly aren't wearing masks.
right,
And it's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? And none of these, you know, these progressive friends of mine get this at all. I'm kind of in the dark here, aren't I?
No, you look good.
Do I?
Yeah,
I
you look.
noticed I looked a little bit green, and I just want to let people know that I'm not COVIDed out, man. So
um, yeah, they're touching everything that the checker, the person at the grocery store, everything I've touched now, put in my cart, was breathing on my hands, whatever, is put it on the belt, then they pick it up,
yes,
they do it, right? Every item
right,
that we all touch, they touch every item too, right?
they do,
And they're not getting.
absolutely.
But this is funny. My wife was at the store the other day, and she said she was looking at she got a bell pepper. She takes a look at the bell pepper, and she looks at it, and she's like, "Oh, this one ain't that good." And then as she's starting to set it down, she's like, "But wait a second. What if someone's seeing me touching this and they don't want to? I'll just buy it."
I
So
have
we
to
just
buy
bought a
it, right?
crappy bell pepper, right? Because she didn't want to put it back. But then later on, she was like, "Oh, I had to start putting stuff back because I was thinking like, I don't want that. I looked at it, I didn't want it. I had to put it back."
It's very
But
kind of
yeah,
her, though. And the thing
right.
is, the other thing that does kind of crack me up, because I wore those you know, those blue nitrile gloves, you know, that
Mhm.
you see that you get at Harbor Freight, and the, you know, 1,000 packs or whatever they are. I wore those things a lot at work when I was working with a particular type of primer that would really grip to my skin, and it'd be hard to get it off. I would wear that stuff, those gloves. And the truth is that if you are wearing gloves and you touch somebody and the germs are staying off your fingers, well, aren't they on the gloves now?
Sure.
You know, and then you go like
Sure.
this with the glove, you know, to get your hair out of your face, or you
Right.
scratch your nose or something with the glove. And so, I mean, it the gloves don't seem to me to be all that effective. And
Right.
I don't know if what we even think about the masks, but it
Yeah,
it
I think the masks do help in the sense that they don't, if you have it, they stop you from giving it to other people
right,
more so. But, we have to start wearing masks here, right? It's pretty much mandatory starting Friday,
yeah,
right? And so I wore one today to the grocery store, and man, I had to touch my face like 5 times because it was itching me to death. And so like at first I was all like touching it, with my like this, and there you go. Well, that's a colorful one.
this was this was given to me by a liberal woman who also, during the period of the Women's March, was knitting pink pussy hats. So she sent one of these to me, and she was careful to pick out a color that would absolutely violently clash with everything I own.
Right.
So,
Almost everything that everybody owns, like that.
she could have sent me a white one if she was thinking about my welfare.
Black,
That's
white,
I was
any
like,
solid color would have
take
worked. Right.
this, Morrison.
Right. So when you get it finally, she'll be like, I sent you something and you didn't wear it. I sent you a mask. Why didn't you wear it?
It's actually, I took a picture of myself wearing it this morning and changed my profile picture on Facebook to with that mask. It looks like I've got some kind of horrible disease. It's all mottled looking.
Oh man.
So everything seems to be okay. I we kind of walked right past the Bernie thing. I am curious as to, do you think that there's any chance that the Democrats will try to postpone the election?
Well, they've already moved back uh, the
The primaries.
Democratic, yeah. So they already moved that back to what, 2 or 3 weeks, and who knows if that keeps going further. Ah, man, I don't think they
Have they
want
moved
to, right?
the convention?
They haven't moved it. They moved the time. I think they
Oh,
moved it
they
back
oh yeah.
two or
Oh,
three
wow.
weeks from like July to August or something, right? Um, and part of that is probably, I mean, this is supposed to be well done by then, right? In a lot of ways, like that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But maybe they're moving it back because some people are moving back their primary elections, but maybe they're moving it back because they're afraid of trouble happening at the Democratic convention, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody who's psyched about Joe Biden. Like,
Well, if I was them, I think I'd probably try to get it done while there's social distancing, because otherwise they might be looking at some Antifa attacks.
yeah.
It seems like the only thing that could get anyone to arrest an Antifa person would be if they violate social distancing standards.
Well, yeah. I mean, they can bust all the windows they want, but
Yeah,
they
that's
can't stand
fine.
6 feet away from each other. Yeah.
What fun
Um,
would it be to smash a Starbucks that's empty? It wouldn't be
right.
that much
By
fun.
yourself because there's no one else can be around, right? That'll just be
There's
boring.
there's Antifa. But they are 6 feet apart, so
Yeah,
they're good.
exactly. No, the
Uh,
other day I mentioned that to one of my friends. He had he showed me a picture like he had gone camping or something, but the way he had dressed looked like kind of like an Antifa member. And I was like, "Oh, you look like Antifa." He's like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Oh, you never heard of Antifa?" And that's happened to me a few times. I'm always like, "Yeah, you know what? There's so many videos of
right.
them doing such crazy, horrible things that everybody should know who they are. But one guy in a MAGA hat does something, and man, everybody in the world will know about it."
Oh God, but I mean, it does serve to remind on occasion when we talk to somebody on the other side, and or even somebody that thinks the same way we do, and they don't get the references that we're
Mhm.
using, that we think are, you know, it's the air we breathe, to always have some political thing in our minds. It serves to remind that most people don't think about politics very much,
Yeah.
and
One of my good friends I was in a band with, we used to talk a lot about politics, and he's a conservative. He's uh he's American Indian, and he's
mm,
conservative, and he was just hardcore, like talking about it nonstop. And then one day he just calls me and he goes, "Look, I've decided I'm done with this. I can't keep worrying about this. I can't keep thinking about this. He's old, he's retired, he's old enough to retire. He's like, I've retired. He's like, I'm retiring from everything. I'm just going to enjoy my life now. And whatever happens, happens. I don't have kids," he said. So because there is something about that. Like I drive through the day thinking about things and just getting upset sometimes, where I'm just thinking like, man, I can't believe we're letting this happen. Or I can't believe that there's so many people out there that think this is okay. And, it's depressing sometimes. I struggle with it.
you mean the thing's okay, the shutdown being okay?
Well, just politics in
Yeah.
general,
Oh
all the
yeah.
things that are
Yeah.
happening. Like I just ponder these things until I come home and I'm like I'm in a bad mood. And just because I'm thinking about, there's so many things that happen in the political world that if you are paying attention, you should be upset.
Well, a good example was, and it was something that you wrote about and spoke about in one of your videos, that was when they did this great big save the country bill, which was really in response to Democrat governors shutting down the big major states. I mean, the California economy is the fifth largest economy in the world. And if you put it, and New York is pretty much right up there too.
Mhm.
You don't just shut down the fifth largest economy in the world and the like third largest, whatever New York is, and the United States, which is the main economy in the world, the largest economy by far in the world. You don't just shut down these giant powerhouses of everybody's everybody's affluence. I mean, they're all pretty well off. Where do they think their money is going to be coming from? You don't just shut all these things down without it being a great big thing to think about. Okay, so that's the giant crisis, right? So they're responding to a crisis that really, in a sense, they created. And now they come up with the big bill to address the great problems of everybody shutting their businesses down and things like that. So now, okay, here it is. It's a chance for the Democrats to show some purity, to show some clarity of thought and some kindness, and think, oh, but no, they put all those little things that you delineated in your video, all that stuff that they're going to hold that bill up
Right.
until they get some of the shit that they want.
They
And
did. They got a lot of stuff they wanted.
And they did. And it's just they can't stop even during a great big crisis that they are depending on us believing is an existential crisis. They're depending on us believing that. They know everybody's watching them, and it's a crisis that they largely created. And they
Right.
still can't stop themselves from trying to get a little bit more out of government, trying to get a little bit more money to
It
their little
worked.
pet causes.
That's the thing, is it worked. Why would they not do it? It worked.
The thing
Right?
is, they know what you and I keep getting surprised by is that we keep getting surprised by the fact that people don't know who Antifa is, that people don't know, about what really went on in the Brett Kavanaugh thing or whatever.
Right.
We're always surprised that people don't know who's Brett Kavanaugh. Wow, we go, that this person lives in this world. We're surprised by it. They count on it. They
Right.
absolutely count on the fact. That's why they're always looking for the most marginalized citizens, like this voter rights thing that they're always going, the voter ID thing. They really want on their voter rolls people who haven't figured out how to get a driver's license, people who could not ever fly on a jet, could not rent a car, can't check into a hotel because they
Right.
have no ID. They want them as voters. They want them as voters really bad. So the dumber they are, I don't want to say this people are necessarily dumb. Some of them are, just, not, well, most of them are probably not too bright,
Right.
but
They're ignorant,
they
for
count
sure.
on that because they know that these people are not going to investigate, and they're not going to look behind the scenes and see things.
Right.
And I'm sure to some degree there's quite a few conservative people who are dumb, uh, but it's not as if we go courting them. You listen to Mark Levin show or something like that, and he's talking about pretty high level understanding of the Constitution and things. And Rush Limbaugh, through the years, he's he's presenting some pretty elegant arguments.
Mhm.
And people have to know their history and things like that. And if you really want to be part of the active part of conservatism, you realize pretty fast, wow, I got some reading to do. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to come up dumb here. And that it's not at all true to be an active and vociferous, uh, you know, person that shows up at marches and things like that. You don't have to know a goddamn thing over there.
Right. Well, AOC, is there a better example than
Yeah,
that? Like, she beat somebody who'd been there a long time, who was, what, I think, next in line behind
next in line to be
Pelosi.
speaker.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, she beat somebody like that, and you can't beat somebody like that with her, with as smart as she is, or
yeah,
that's one way of putting it. And the voter has to be equally as smart or
right.
as ignorant or as dumb, right? And that's where we're at. No, they make their money on people not knowing what's going on, what people stand for, what even language means a lot of times, right? Because
Right.
they're allowed to, we talked about it earlier, stopping people coming from China when there's a China virus outbreak was racist, was xenophobic,
Hey,
right? They got away with explaining that to people, and people going like, "Yeah, Trump's a xenophobe." Like,
if the
come on, man.
if the thing happened in Oklahoma, man, we would cordon off Oklahoma
That's
by
exactly
sundown
right.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
and we would say the Oklahoma virus. Even people in Oklahoma would call it the Oklahoma
Somebody
virus.
asked me, they said, let's say it happened in America. Let's say this virus happened in America, an outbreak, and the rest of the world said, we don't want any Americans coming, and you guys had to stay there, and no one could get out. I said, well, I think everybody's being pretty smart about it. Like, that's smart. Like, of course.
Yeah,
What, but
good for them,
they
bad
try
for
to
us.
change it. They try to change it. But what about you? Like, you don't have it, and you want to get out. And it's like, let's stop acting like people from China were trying to escape this virus. That isn't what was happening, and we were stopping that from happening. What was
Right.
happening is we were trying to stop normal travel, or just really and it's only in a short while. Like, it's so absurd,
Well,
but
this
there's
right.
so many people who believe it.
Oh, well, and this comes back to like I remember after the 9/11 thing, and ever naturally we're a little bit concerned about guys who look like they possibly could be terrorists. Maybe you
Mhm.
got two guys who looked about 19 to 22 years old with each other, getting on an airplane together in the months after airplanes had been flown into buildings,
Mhm.
including the Pentagon, for God's sake. You know, but it was, oh my God, we must not in any way profile somebody. So this means when the Swedish grandmother comes through and the baby in the
Mhm.
baby carriage, we have to frisk them too. And this is just also stupid. This is one of the things I love about Israel. They don't do any of this BS. They just go,
Right.
yeah, and you look like an Arab, you get frisked.
Right.
They just figure it out. And people would ask me, well, how would you feel? Because even though technically back then I was still a Democrat, I suppose I was always the guy that would say, "Well, of course, better that a couple of people, innocent people, are inconvenienced than a whole bunch of innocent people die." And this is the choice we're facing.
Mhm.
So, I would say that, and they would say, well, how would you feel if you were one of those people? I said, I would probably feel like, what a bummer that I'm one of those people. But I do look a little bit like a terrorist. I fit the mold. This is what I would be saying in the imagined case. Yeah, actually, you do
Yeah.
look a little bit like a terrorist, but I don't. I look like
Hey,
some I don't know
what
what.
what's funny about that is, after college, I went to Europe and played baseball for 5 years,
Yeah,
right? And, I was in Sweden when 9/11 happened, and then after that, I guess I did another 3 years in Europe, and so basically I would fly home and stay home for a month, and then I'd fly back to Europe. And after 9/11, I would get checked all the time because I was going back and forth. I'd been like 5 years in a row now, and so
exactly.
they're going like, "Hey, that's something that's strange." Right? So I would show up with my bags to go to my next team. I'd have a big duffel bag with some baseball bats and gloves, whatever, and they'd pull it all out and they'd put it on and they'd ask me questions, why are you
Right,
going there and all that stuff. And I never once thought, why are you picking on me? Right?
right.
Like, yeah, but I would have much rather had to just me do that than everybody else have to take their shoes off and all the stuff everybody is doing. Like, yeah, this looks suspicious.
Right.
Some guy from small town Kentucky is now traveling to Europe 5 years in a row. Is he dealing drugs? Is he a terrorist? What's going on? Like, I get it. So it didn't
It,
bother me.
I've always felt that way too. And there, if I was to be out somewhere and I got pulled over, and somebody said, "Well, we've got a lot of middle-aged guys driving white little old lady vans." like mine. My van is a
Right.
safari van. For those of you who don't know, and I bought it from a little old lady whose house I painted a number of times, and it uh, it's an old person vehicle. So if a
Right.
cop pulled me over and says, "Look, we've got somebody that's robbing houses around here. It's a middle-aged man. in a van, a white van. So would you mind if we shone the flashlight around on the inside? I would say absolutely go for it, because not only do I not take offense at that, not only, but I appreciate that a cop is doing his job. It makes
Mhm.
me feel safer to know that the cop is doing his job. And because I have nothing to hide, like you had nothing to hide, there was no drugs in your ball bag.
Right.
So, you, so you actually can have a sense of gratitude
Right.
alongside your slight sense of inconvenience.
Well, when I was, I don't know, one summer, maybe I was 21, um, I was in college, but it was a summer. So me and a friend of mine, we'd play music. And my parents had this little office, and we'd go to this office so we could set up my drums and play music and not bother anybody.
Right,
And so we ended up staying up late. I didn't have a job because I was in college, and my parents were being nice to me, I guess. And so we would stay up late, and we'd go to McDonald's or somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of times we'd get pulled over. And I'd be like, "No, man, I'm not doing anything," you know?
right,
And I felt that being 21 years old, I felt that, like, "Why are you bothering me?" And so I go to my dad, I'm like, "I'm gonna write the commissioner of our small town. The mayor, I'm gonna tell him," you know? And my dad said, "Son, people who are 21 years old out driving at 3 o'clock in the morning are drinking a lot of times. They're doing drugs. That's what
right,
they're checking, you know? So you're fine. Just don't, you know, that's what it is." And he told me, he's like, "Listen, I don't mind them pulling you over because I want everybody to be safe out there, and people are doing crazy stuff in the middle of the night." And a small town too, you got to look at it. No one's out really. There's only a few cars out here
right.
and there. So a cop sees headlights. He goes, "Oh, let's see what these people are doing out at three or 4 o'clock in the morning." And a lot of times they are drinking or doing drugs or robbing somebody and that kind of
Right.
stuff. So
And this is one of the things that I think separates the conservative from the liberal, is that there some transition is made as you grow older from being a self-serving child, because all children are self-serving. If the
mhm,
first sound you make in on this planet is a scream, a demand to be, that somebody give you some food, take care of me, make me
mhm,
warm, make me fed. And if we weren't born with the ability to bitch nonstop until somebody did what we wanted them to do, we wouldn't have survived.
mhm,
So, and no human ever would. But you have to make the transition from the me childhood to an understanding that, oh wow, all of the things I see around me are the result of other people's efforts. And
mhm,
when I was a kid, we'd go out there and we'd vandalize stuff as a teenager, and I look back on that with such a sense of guilt.
mhm.
That I just wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't understanding that. And by the time I was 18 years old and had my own house, suddenly the light started going on. Oh wow, it's difficult to earn money and be responsible for my own groceries and have, cook my own meals and have to show up on time. And you start the pathway to conservative beliefs, because conservative beliefs aren't really, there's no such ideology called conservative thought. It's just what works, in a
Mhm.
sense. It's just all those things
Right.
that work. And we call it conservative because we're trying to conserve the things that work and hold them still against these children, these mental children who, no, I want that, and that Bernie Sanders, as a man who is, uh, you know, he's not middle-aged, he's an old man. He's an
He's an old man.
old man that he goes out there and still has these childish notions. What we're going to do is we're going to cancel all debt, and then we're going to make a certain number of millionaires and billionaires pay for it all. That we'll miss the ability to make that voice, won't we? We miss
I
that
know,
ability.
right?
But he's never he doesn't understand that, either that or he knows
Right.
that his audience doesn't understand that. And for kids to hear that coming from an old man, and they think of him as kind of he's a celebrity politician, so they think of that as ultimate success. He's been successful in the world and still thinks the way that they think as 19-year-old 20-year-olds who've never been in the world. it validates their way of thinking. It allows them to go forward without growing up and without changing their thoughts. It allows them to stay in that childish serve me, feed me mode. And it's just the Democrats, if they didn't manage to cultivate that in people, they'd never win another election ever.
Right. No, what you were saying earlier is funny. The conservatives could just be called the taking care of business people, right?
Exactly.
Like because it's like you do what works because it works, and you take responsibility for what you have to do, because if you don't do it, it's not going to get done, right?
Exactly. And give it, and when a person who is wired a little bit more toward the new and the interesting, kind of new things, so they are of a sort of liberal mind, and they're always looking for new ways to do things. We need them in society as well. But so they bring this stuff to us and go, let's see if this works. And we look and we see how it fits in with primarily with human nature. And if we look at it and go, yeah, well, it would be great, like all the sort of utopian ideas. I read utopian literature when I was a young hippie. And I had this book that I loved called Ecotopia, which was basically it's like it could be the Bible for the Green New Deal, right? And but I grew up to the place where I look at those bookshelves or those books on my shelf, and I would say, yeah, that was great, but we're just the wrong species for that. That doesn't work in real human application, and we're willing to understand that. We look at we accept the human condition, and they think if we just change enough stuff, the rules we put on them will actually change human nature.
Right.
And that's just never going to happen. And so
they definitely don't take human nature into consideration.
Right.
It's the idea that if they can just make everybody see something a certain way, then it can all work out.
Yeah, and they think it'll actually change the nature of the people, because which is so weird, because they all believe in evolution, but not a one of them believes that there are immutable characteristics in people other than they're born gay. Other than that, they think everything can be changed through the right kind of legislation.
Except being gay.
Except being gay.
I never even thought of it that way, but that's a good way to put it.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
So, well, this has been great. We've talked for a little over an hour now, and I bet you about ready to wrap it up and go be with your family.
Definitely.
Jason has 12 children.
Yeah, right.
It's incredible.
I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning,
You do. So, just a word to the people out there that might still be listening, if there are any of you still listening. One of the things that we're going to make some of these, if any of you like it, because we like doing it. So if you find this interesting, give us some feedback. Ask us some things for the next time we do it.
Yeah.
And also, if you do like I do, I always plug in I use this thing, and I have a little MP3 player. It's not handy right here to show you, but I got it on Amazon. But you can take anything that's posted on YouTube, and there's utilities online. I use Y2Mate. Isn't that the one that we use? Y2Mate.
Yeah, I use that one.
So you could take an hour-long podcast like this from YouTube, turn it into an MP3. There's a number of them that they just flip it over to an MP3 very easily, and download that, put it into your iPhone or whatever you use for MP3s, and go for a good long walk and listen to us ramble. And
well, they can't go for a walk today, so actually just watch the podcast.
I do. I still walk around the neighborhood. No, my neighbors are all out there walking.
No, there's a lot of people walking. I've noticed that.
Defiant ones.
And the gardeners, the gardeners are, for some reason, they're essential. I don't know why, but they're out there taking care of those nice neighborhoods.
You got to get your lawn mowed. Anyway, you want to call it a night on this one, buddy?
Sounds good, my friend.
It's good actually hearing your voice again after so long.
I know, right? So let's do this more regularly.
Yeah, we should. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you, brother.